It's hard to find a good starting point for this video, but I guess the one thing that we can all agree on is that game developers can be scummy, and EA is one of those. From having bad business practices, closing so many game studios, and ruining people's most beloved series, EA has done everything to basically piss gamers off. They're not exactly the most likable gaming company in history. In fact, they received multiple worst company awards as far as I know. So the latest incarnation of EA's bad business practice has managed to cause a little bit of controversy, and we're gonna talk about that controversy today. EA is already notorious for its bad business practices, and when I say bad, I mean bad for the consumers. It's not bad for EA because they're the ones who are making money. It's bad for the consumers because they're the ones being exploited by games with absolute garbage quality filled with microtransactions. EA is known for ruining a lot of series like SimCity with its bullcrap always online policies on release and subpar gameplay to accompany it. The Sims 4 with a significant downgrade in the content compared to the vanilla version of its predecessor. Dead Space 3 has microtransactions and turned a very fun gorefest extravaganza that takes itself way too seriously into a boring slog of a game. All because EA wanted Dead Space to be a mainstream third-person shooter, and if they see failure, they're gonna blame the game devs and close it down. See my last video for it. And now comes Battlefront 2. I think it's better for you to understand the size and scope of how scummy this business practice is. Here's a Reddit post that illustrates this point perfectly. So in Star Wars Battlefront 2, it uses a system in which you're going to get credits based on the time spent instead of based on the score earned in a match. The average Galactic Assault match length is about 11 minutes. You're going to get around 275 credits on average per match. Average credits per minute of gameplay is about 25. But in order for you to get the Trooper Crate loot box, which is the most expensive loot box that costs 4,000 points, you're going to need about 3 hours of the game. What's inside the loot box, you might ask? Well, ability points that include complete invincibility when using jetpacks as Boba Fett. Now, in order for you to get the heroes, which cost 60,000 points, you're going to need about 40 hours of game. EA has since decreased the heroes' cost to about 75%, and now it's 15,000 points. So with the current calculation, it's going to take you about 10 hours of gameplay to get a single hero, and that consists of around 60 matches. Now, some of you might say, oh well, 10 hours to unlock every hero, that's not a lot of time. I'm willing to grind my way out for 10 hours. Well, good for you in that case, but people can buy their way out into unlocking said heroes while you are grinding constantly for 10 hours straight. And that is assuming the gameplay of Star Wars Battlefront 2 is satisfactory to you. And that is assuming you're not being put against opponents that actually do buy their way out into the game and wouldn't kick your ass. My question is, why would you grind for 10 hours plus when you can just buy your way into unlocking the characters? Sure, you can say that this is optional, you don't have to do this, but to reference Yahtzee's Dead Space 3 review,
did you love blowing real money on flooding everyone's Facebook pages with news on your imaginary cows? Well, you'll love blowing real money on being able to win a non-continuous game with less effort and thus cheapen any sense of achievement. The scheme seems to be to walk into a bank with a gun and a ski mask on, put a bucket on the floor and say, I'm going now, but if anyone wants to put some money in there, then, you know, the option's open. And if anyone actually does put money in the bucket, then that person probably shouldn't have had financial independence in the first place.
As if those aren't horrifying enough, thanks to SidAlpha for introducing me on this Reddit post, I'm going to share you a comment from someone who works as an electronics media PR. So basically what he's saying here is that EA has spent thousands of man hours focusing and doing market research on the optimal way to wring money out of your wallet. This means that complaining to them will not change their mind, because EA will always be EA, and they have spent hours of finding a way to milk the players' money as much as possible. The most interesting part is how EA is going to manipulate the narrative. Instead of actually fixing the beta, they say that they're going to make changes, which will cause a lot of gaming outlets to say that they are, implying that they're going to fix the many broken things in beta, which they don't. They just say that they're making changes, and some changes could make the game even worse. This is similar to Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Origins. They manipulate the language by saying, oh, you can't buy loot boxes with real money, but you can buy the money required for the loot boxes with real money. And this allows them in interviews to say, you can't buy loot boxes with money, therefore omitting the other necessary fact. In other words, everything is calculated by EA to make sure they extract money out of your wallet, and there are going to be a lot of other AAA game publishers that do this as well. Now the question that remains here is, will you give them any more money? And now let's get into petty drama. The petty drama started when the EA community manager responded to players' criticisms by giving this paragraph. I'm just gonna focus on the absolutely hilarious first sentence. The intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. That's right, the 10-hour grind is all for you to feel a sense of accomplishment, which is made obsolete if you give EA more and more money. How about no EA? How about you give all players a fair chance? This post got a lot of gamers angry so much that it's downvoted 559,000 times as of November 14, 2017. You can see the hilarity in the archive link down below, which also includes the original link if you want to check out the current stats. Players are starting to get tired of your garbage, even if you decrease the value of the heroes to about 75%, which, by the way, alongside the decrease of the heroes, they also decrease the value of the single-player campaign reward to 5,000 credits. Good job, EA! So one of the game developers at EA is said to have received 7 death threats and over 1,600 personal attacks because of an unpopular feature in the game, and by unpopular feature he meant the microtransactions. I really want to ask this person in where he got all of the death threats from, but his account is protected. However, I did manage to find one death threat, if you can call it that, and it's every bit as pathetic as you guys make it out to be. I don't see why this person should receive special treatment just because he received a death threat. But Appa, you gave that Dream Daddy fan artist a special treatment by making a video of how she received death threats. Let me tell you why I made that video. I made that video so that I want to understand why people are sending death threats over a fan art. There's an entire segment in which I give these Tumblr rights the benefit of the doubt and put aside the death threats so that I can understand their criticism and why the fan art is offensive. I still don't understand the criticism even to this day, and I'm still horrified that some people are willing to even justify the death threats. Also, I have actual tweets coming from people who justify the death threats towards the fan artist. I have actual screenshots of people saying all of these things. You have a tweet alleging the death threats, and so far I can only find one that wasn't even a death threat at all. Now, I have given these Tumblr rights the benefit of the doubt and even addressed their arguments and criticisms by putting aside the death threats. This is something that a lot of these virtue signalers don't do at all. They love to virtue signal of how death threats are unacceptable, but they don't actually address the criticisms. In fact, the death threats craze is made to deflect actual criticisms that people make. It's kind of standard practice for EA to now shift the blame to everyone. They've done this in the past, even when they're being awarded Worst Company of the Year. People are going to argue about the death threats that 7 people make instead of actually addressing the concerns that thousands of people have over EA milking money on their consumers. They don't address the arguments at all. They don't address the actual criticisms. They just tell people, hey, you cannot send death threats to people. That's just wrong. Yes, we know that it's wrong, which is why most of us don't do it. I don't do it. So why are you focusing on the clearly fringe minority? Is it because it's an easy target for you? Is it because it's easy to go into the small minority of gamers and go, oh well, this gamer tells me to kill myself. I think this perfectly justifies me screwing their wallets even more. I think this is perfectly freaking obvious, but I have to say it for some people who clearly doesn't get it. If you send death threats to game developers, you're only going to make yourself look bad. And people are not going to listen to you because you're a lunatic. You're making EA to look like the good guys here, which is something that you should never ever do, you goddamn moron. However, making that statement alone is not enough to stop these idiots. Do you know why I constantly ask you to stop caring about the fringe minority and start actually addressing the criticisms that the majority people make? Because you cannot control these morons. I cannot control these morons. They act on their own accords. There are always going to be idiots stirring up drama to the game devs and making everyone in the gaming community to look bad. Hell, maybe the death threats are deliberately manufactured. If the way EA handles this controversy is calculated, maybe this entire thing is also calculated. It's kind of like the hoax hate crimes that you see quite often in the news. I try my hardest, and I mean my hardest, to be very nice when I give my criticisms to people. I'm sure thousands and thousands of gamers out there tried their hardest to be nice. I'm sure that thousands and thousands of people have told each other, hey, sending death threats is a stupid move. But no matter how hard we try, there are always going to be idiots who say, kill yourself, bitch, and they are way beyond our control. So please don't give these people any attention whatsoever. They're always going to be there stirring up drama, and let's actually address the criticisms that the majority have. I think among this drama about microtransactions and the death threats towards the game developers for criticizing them, we should just take a moment, shut up, and seriously ask this question. What will you do? If you gamers are going to keep on buying EA's games and later be a good whale to them and keep throwing money at them like a good boy, I've had family members that lose so much money over buying stuff in free-to-play Android games. I honestly cannot find sympathy over people who make poor financial decisions like that. And as a content creator, while I'm not exactly as famous as EA, I have received death threats as well. If I did something wrong, I try to focus on the actual criticisms and ignore the death threats or the insults. Focusing too much on the trolls really do not help both my sanity and how to improve myself. So I ignored them, and I focus on the people that have genuine criticisms because they're the ones who actually care about me. They're the ones that I should be catering to because they're the ones that know how to make me improve. So if you're a game developer, just so you know that every time you go public, trolls will always happen regardless of what you do. Just be glad that these people are the minority. So keep on doing what you're doing and listen to customer feedback. And if your customer feedback manages to be the most downvoted Reddit comment in history, I think you should really listen to customer feedback. But then again, we're talking about EA. They don't care about customer feedback. They only care about your wallet.
Fuck the clients. Your only responsibility is to put meat on the table. Name of the game? Move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.